Welcome back to our 13th episode of Demystifying SAP S4HANA. I'm Faisal, SAP consultant at PwC.
And I'm Thorsten Hübsch, partner at PwC and leading the SAP practice in Belgium and the Center of Excellence for Sub-Strategy.
Hello, Thorsten.
Hey, Faisal.
What are we talking about today?
Well, today we actually want to go into a question that we got from a lot of customers. A lot of customers are scared from the publicly exposed long S4HANA transformations. They got in the meantime a bit like the vibe of being extremely expensive, long-lasting, quite risky, unpredictable, and at the end also not delivering the value. So key question was, how is it actually possible to make them less expensive, less risky, and deliver them faster? Because in today's world, no one wants to make a decision for a 4 or 5 year project, getting the value at the end, but we have a much faster running environment where these are timelines which very often are seen as extremely long and too long for such an endeavor.
So what are the main drivers that typically make these projects so expensive or risky, as you mentioned?
Yeah, if we look back, and in the meantime, I have the opportunity to look back on over 100 S4HANA transformations. We actually identified 4 domains which are main effort drivers, main cost drivers, and also lead to a lot of project fatigue. And I suggest we go through them one by one, but let me first name them, kind of an overview. So on the one hand side, when going into massive process redesign exercises, this is already something where projects go quite long. Again, we will go into detail later on. Second domain is data migration, especially when requesting a full historical scope from multiple ERPs, then as migrated into one single target ERP, S4HANA. Then we also see that as a big risk and cost driver. Third one is actually all around customizing your S4 beyond the standard functionality. And fourth, and certainly this list is not complete, but these are certainly the 4 ones which always pop up when we face long-lasting projects. The fourth one is the integration in complex system landscapes. So basically the interaction with other systems, which at the one hand side you cannot fully avoid, but you can do it in a smart way. But there we will go in a bit more into detail.
Yes, let's then start with the first one, process redesign. To me, redesigning processes sounds like an opportunity. So why, or maybe when, does it become a risk?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is an opportunity, no question. But it's also one of the biggest project accelerators or killers. Redesigning the core business processes during the project often triggers alignment challenges. You're talking a lot. You need to have decisions. You need to bring people together. You have a lot of workshops across business units, across geographies, across management levels. And this can lead then to misunderstandings and so forth. And all of a sudden, the beautiful project timeline that you had in mind is all of a sudden not valid anymore. Everyone wants their own flavor of how it should actually work. Without clarity and guardrails on how that actually should take place, this will lead to very long decision cycles, missed milestones, and quite some frustrations. Moreover, redesigning processes often requires new policies. You first have to put these new policies in place, new controls in place, and sometimes even changes in organizational responsibilities. That adds to training, change management, and system configuration, all of which increases, again, the time and effort needed. So how to avoid that? Important that you here then have a very strict message from the top of your organization which really requires then people to justify why they need certain things and why they cannot live with the standard. We see here also that organizations that have already shared service centers into place, which basically work very often with standardized processes, have a big advantage. They're one body. The shared service center, for example, for finance or for procurement, decides how the process is supposed to run, and you avoid going through your whole, sometimes globalized organization and finding consensus.
The second factor you have mentioned was data migration. It sounds like a technical task, to be honest. But why is it one of the top effort drivers, would you say?
Yeah, actually, exactly what you mentioned as assumption is the reason why this usually gets completely out of control. Data migration is never just technical. Data migration becomes a huge burden when companies try to migrate full historical data from multiple legacy systems, especially if the data quality is poor or inconsistent. And maybe let me hold in here for a second, because I already hear some of our listeners who say, well, who would possibly migrate the whole historical data? The starting point is not very often that we want to have all data from the past, but the longer the discussions go, the longer we will also see, we need this and we need that, and then all of a sudden we end up in, well, why are we not just migrating everything? Because it might be much faster. But that's actually not a good rationale behind that decision, because very often we see that especially correcting data which are back for many, many years, on the one hand side, have not any impact on in terms of the value that you will get out, but also these data are not needed in your actual transactional system. No one wants to discuss against having these data somewhere, but they don't need to be necessarily in your S4 system. So you can basically keep them into a system of record that is basically frozen, and you can easily go ahead with the data, for example, of 1 year from the past plus open items. But this is more about the history and the length of the data that you want to migrate into your future system. Another big problem is also harmonizing material numbers, harmonizing customer IDs, pricing conditions, GL accounts across systems with different definitions and structures. All that requires massive efforts. And adding to that, the fact that ownership of data is often unclear in organizations. We have a number of organizations who do not have a data owner, for example, for customer data or for vendor data. It's sometimes spread between either sales and finance, procurement and finance, etc. So all of a sudden, you have to go into discussions which you didn't even expect. When making decisions, when doing data cleansing, who is doing that? And so, of course, cleansing data is also nobody's day job. And so there are also, that comes with additional effort that had not been foreseen. And then all of a sudden you realize this whole thing with data migration is a massive cost driver. If you combine that on a lot of data history plus bad data quality or multiple source systems, this is like a multiplier. And then you get on even more pressure of already busy teams. And then I think everyone can picture that this very quickly then explodes. So here also my very big ask to everyone who is going on such a journey, get your head around on data migration extremely early. You can't start early enough. And also hammer down a strategy and be very rigid in what you want to take over and how much data you want to deal with for your migration. Good.
Moving on to the third driver, customizing S4HANA. But wasn't flexibility one of SAP's strengths?
Yeah, this is absolutely right. And it's actually a double-edged sword. And people who are longer in the SAP around, They, of course, know that sticking to the standard and so forth has been around for already many, many years. But it's not about customizing, it's about customizing in the right way. There are, in the meantime, a lot of elements within S4HANA foreseen that allow you to customize in a proper and clean way. Also to use then, we mentioned it in the previous episode, the business technology platform, where you basically do your customization outside of the S4 system and you keep your core clean. Then, of course, customizing is something that is perfectly fine. But if you try to tweak and change your system, this becomes a cost trap, when then also companies try to rebuild their legacy processes in the new system instead of adopting standard best practices, standard functionality from the SAP. Every customizing is not only taking time to develop and to test, but it will also add to the technical debt. That means upgrades become harder. Documentation often lags behind and dependencies pile up. Worse, custom code often replicates inefficient and outdated logic. So instead of innovating, you're just transferring old garbage into a new house. That delays time to value and increases long-term maintenance costs.
The last one on your list is integration. Isn't that just about like connecting APIs and so on?
Yeah, if it only were that simple. Integration is one of the most underestimated complexity drivers, and also one complexity driver which is honestly not that easy to control like the previous three that we have. Most companies have a web of connected systems. You have manufacturing execution systems, MES, customer relationship management, tax system, HR system, banks, warehouse management systems, e-commerce systems. Each of these connections needs to be specified, built, tested, monitored, and maintained. Moreover, the data flows between systems need to be consistent in format, logic, and timing. It's not just good to have the data from the left to the right. They also need to be in the right format to get it to get into a situation that you compare apples with apples and you can actually do something on the other side with it. A misalignment can break business critical processes like invoice creation or order confirmation, but also if you are not smartly integrating, in a sense of you have like an integration solution where everyone connects to and you connect only with one interface from SAP to that integration solution, then we get into a hardly to manage complexity of point-to-point connections throughout your landscape. And then you're all lost in a project, extremely difficult to test, as I mentioned, extremely difficult to predict how much it will cost, and then stress goes up, budget goes up, risk goes up, all the situations we don't want to see in such a project.
Yes, so we basically discussed 4 main drivers why projects get risky or more expensive. But how do clients avoid falling into these traps? How can they avoid these situations?
So on process redesign, you first have to make up your mind, and that's, a very important decision at the beginning. How far do you want to go? Or what can you leave untouched in terms of redesign, where you say you take it over, basically a bit of lift and shift, and what do you actually have to redesign? And once this is done, put in place a very, very clear governance. Start from what are the best practices. In the past, we had concepts like model company that doesn't exist anymore. But in today's world, we still have these best practices. The Sapphire from last week in Madrid and Orlando has shown pre-packaged configurations that can be quickly used. And then make it really a CEO topic to say, if people really want to design very complex processes, this will get attention really high in the organization, and there will be also incentives not to do that and not to go down these roads. So same also, of course, we have seen that in many projects. Local expectations are sometimes not managed well. So as soon as we want to roll out to certain business units or certain countries, then all of a sudden a firework of requirements is starting, impacting the whole process redesign journey. So that's certainly for the process redesign a big takeaway to, on the one hand side, contain, on the other hand side, have a solid governance to pull it through with high level attention from up in the organization. Second one that we spoke about was data migration. So it was all about history. So decide early how much history is really needed. And actually every additional year in the past needs to be, and I come back again to CEOs, CFOs, C-level of a company, needs to be justified there. So if someone says, I need the last 25 years, the person must make a business case, what it will mean if we don't have these data in the S4 system. Again, this does not mean you don't have these data anymore. You can have these data in a separate system of record, in a system which basically freezes these data, but you don't need to migrate them into your future S4 landscape. So be also rigid on that, how much you want to take over. Use templates for data cleansing and enrichment, and don't start here from scratch. And also on the clean data governance, or implement this clean data governance model to define who owns which data and who has to prepare the data for the cutover. Again, my big advice to start with that very early, because this helps you also to backfill certain people that are needed for this data migration, and then of course containing the scope for the data migration as much as possible. Third topic was customization. Challenge every deviation from the standard. SAP is a rich switching board where you have so many possibilities to do things in standard. So why customizing? I've seen really things in the past where SAP actually became a development environment, and that's not what you pay for the licenses. If you want to have a development environment, you can get that much cheaper. If you want to go down with an SAP system, a lot of functionality is included, and make it really scrutinize every deviation there from the top level. Stick to fit to standard workshops, avoid blueprinting, avoid saying, what do you want? No, I tell you what you get and you tell me why this is not working out. No? This is also getting a bit already now into this public cloud mindset, certainly with more flexibility, but in public cloud it's mandatory that you basically have to take what you get, and you don't have too many possibilities to deviate. And then lastly, we had the topic on integration. It's also a good exercise to take a step back and say which systems really need to be integrated. Sometimes we see heavy integrations where flat files once a day via your integration backbone, your WebSphere or your integration suite would be enough to exchange, while we are seeing then many man days of integration work spent for a relatively small actual use, actually added value. So I mentioned it already, integration suite. It's absolutely amazing what SAP has built as brand new integration solution. We have made a lot of positive experience with that. There you come or you get a lot of pre-built connectors. It is awesome to work with that, and there you have one place where you can monitor, maintain and keep all your logic and run the communication flows across the system. And last but not least, for the integration, also important to set a clear ownership for each interface. Who builds it, who tests it, who maintains it, who owns it. So that's actually my advice to tackle these 4 domains. And you heard, I think, in all of them, C-level attention. This sounds, of course, a bit high for an ERP project, but if C-level doesn't care about containing process redesign, about containing data migration, about containing the deviations from the standard, then you can be sure that a project will face the challenge to really go off-road, and that will come with, back to the topic of the session, higher costs, longer timelines of the project, higher risks, and that's what no one wants.
Yes, so we know the main drivers, we know how to avoid them. So it sounds like a great playbook to me, to be honest. If you had to sum it up in one sentence, maybe, we know C-level attention was very important, but retry it without.
Yes, indeed. Basically, it's the message to the C-level, what I would enforce in the organization, Faisal. So I would tell them, listen, they should tell their organization, keep it simple. Challenge your organization. Do you need to buy this pen in a 5-step approval process with what have you included? Keep it simple. Second, stick to the standards. In standard, there is so much possible. Make use of it. You pay for it, and really stay as much as possible there. Get good consultants that know the standard and use it as much as possible. And then something that I've seen in many projects going wrong: prepare well. So it is important to get to start it right. Once you are in the air, it's difficult to change an engine of your plane. As long as you're still on the ground and you see you're maybe not beefed up enough, then of course it's still easier to change. Also foresee, when I say prepare well, also foresee during preparation already certain revision moments. Say we check our approach after 4 weeks, 8 weeks again and see if it is efficient, and we deliberately then say, hey, we need to fine-tune the one or the other element, and planning that from the beginning so it doesn't look in the project as something already almost failure. So these three things is actually top of my mind of keep it simple, stick to the standards, and prepare well for the project. And don't bring old habits into a new system.
Yes. So that was again more than one sentence, but we'll take it. And we'll wrap up this episode again. That's it, Torsten.
Yes, thanks, Faisal. It was a pleasure. I think that was a very valid question of a number of people, both on Sapphire, but also post-Sapphire, where people came up and asked us actually explicitly to have that session once for all people that are interested. Very much looking forward. I think next on our plan is getting a bit of clarity in the colors. What is a brown field, blue field, green field? But I think it's also fair to, again, make some publicity for our webinar, public cloud webinar. If not mistaken, Faisal, it's the 11th of September.
Yes.
We will also put the registration link into the show notes.
Yes, in this one again. So 11th of September, indeed, at 1 p.m. we have this public cloud webinar, which you can participate to with using the registration link that we will put into these show notes and the previous show notes, where we discussed public vs private cloud.
Awesome. So that's a good one, I guess.
Again, subscribe, share, and like this episode. And see you in the next one.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Faisal.
Bye-bye.